Thanks for checking out this movie review video. So this is for the 2020 release, The Empty Man, and because it is a 2020 release, that's only 1 year ago at this point, no spoilers in this review, so you can, if you haven't seen it, you can go ahead and continue with this review, and things will not be spoiled. I will be talking about aspects of the film that I did like, aspects that I did not like, but I think overall, I wasn't really feeling this film. Although, I know there are a lot of people out there who really did enjoy this film, including a good friend of mine, and I would love to hear from more people in the comments of this particular video. What did you really like about the film? Or, if you agree with me on my assessment of the film, I'm definitely open to hearing stuff about that, or even things I didn't consider about it. So, anyway, excuse me. The Empty Man, written and directed by David Pryor. Now, he wrote the script, but it's also based off of a graphic novel done by Cullen Bunn, which Cullen Bunn has done a lot of comic related stuff, so just know that. Quick synopsis. I don't want to give too much away on the synopsis. So something happens in the beginning of the film that really sets up what is going on, although at that point you don't really know the deeper meaning there. But it's basically some people, so I won't tell you that portion, but I will tell you the fast forward. Some people who are looking into, mainly this one guy who's a police officer, looking into deaths, some kind of suspicious deaths, and maybe some weird things, and a group kind of linked to these suspicious deaths. So it really does have a lot of kind of an investigative aspect to it, and I did like that. But one of my biggest problems is this film feels like the pacing is terrible. It feels like it's way too long. The film is like a little bit over 2 hours and 15 minutes with end credits, and I feel like the movie should be no longer than like an hour and 50 minutes. So they put way too much into this. That's not my only problem with the film, but that's my main problem with the film. Because it's so long, a lot of the stuff really needed to be cut back. It kills the pacing. The pacing is terrible with this film, in my opinion. And there's something else that really messes with it, but I'll get to it as I read off my notes. Really cool and beautiful setting in this, in the beginning, like the little intro portion before the title pops up. Beautiful, looks amazing, and that's one of the things, like the directing was done well with this film, the cinematography was done well, the music was done really well, pretty restrained, very kind of ominous, and gives you like an underlying kind of unsettled feeling when it needs to, but it's not over the top. It's not beating you over the head with what they want you to feel in that moment. So really enjoyed the score on this one, directing, cinematography. The acting is wonderful in this as well, although I think there was a choice by the director for the acting that I did not enjoy. I'll talk about that in a minute. They move into the intrigue with this film pretty quickly, and that really does grab your attention. I'm mainly just talking about the intro portion segment before the title, which is what I'm talking about. Very interesting. It gets very interesting very fast with that. The only problem is they then backpedal a bunch after the title comes up, and it slows down significantly. I think that because it was so interesting in the beginning, and then they backpedal so much after the title, it feels like a big letdown. Because you're kind of like, okay, I'm amped up, I'm ready to go, let's get into this. And then it feels like it's like, oh, no, hold on. We need to explain a bunch of things to you, and we need to do... And, like, I get that. Like, you need to develop character, you need to develop backstories, all that type of stuff. I get it. But it feels like they were way too slow. And it's way too unengaging, in my opinion, at least for me personally. The pre-title scene, this is very interesting. The pre-title scene was a bit over 20 minutes. I have never experienced that before. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's an interesting thing. Because I've never had that happen. Usually those scenes that happen before the title comes up are like, I don't know, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, but over 20 minutes, it was crazy. I was like, when the title finally popped up, I was like, oh, they're doing the title, because I just assumed as it went so far into the film that they're not going to pop the title up at all. Surprise, they did over 20 minutes in, so I was just like, I've never experienced this before, where that opening scene is so long. But it was good. It was a very good opening scene. With how good the end of the pre-title scene is and how slow things are after that, it makes it hard to enjoy, yes. Every character talks and acts exactly the same, and everyone's energy is super low. that does not help the film at all. It certainly doesn't help with the pacing issue. So like everyone's like a good writer can have each character kind of sound different, sound like a different character. Every single character sounds the same in this. They speak exactly the same, their tone is exactly the same, they don't really show emotion, and that really bothers me. I feel like it makes the film more boring. Now, I think this was an intentional choice because of something tied to the story, which I don't want to reveal, but I still think it was a mistake because it makes the film way less engaging, in my opinion. You want to feel like you can kind of relate to the characters, especially any main characters in the film, and I just didn't feel like I could do that because they're all just like straight faced, monotone, and everyone talks the same. Like there's no variation at all, and I thought it was a huge mistake to do that. And that's one of the big reasons that I really did not enjoy this film. That plus being way too long and the pacing being off. Because the story too, like on the aspect of, you know, it being too long, the story doesn't need over 2 hours to tell at all. At all. The only reason they kind of stretch it out like that is because they want you to like hang with the characters more and they want to, you know, do a little bit more of that investigative aspect, which that's fine, but the characters aren't interesting. Not interesting at all. I felt no connection to any character at any point, really. They failed at that, in my opinion. Music helps create some good atmosphere. Like I was talking, I really enjoy the score for this one. The investigative aspect is really cool. I do like that, although they just go too far with it. And you know, they show a lot of the same type of investigative stuff. It's like, okay, we already did something like this. We don't need to do the exact same thing just in a different location. It's kind of like, let's move on here. There's this sort of a montage toward the end of the film that's way too long and way too over the top. I understand they were supposed to be imbuing the audience with some emotion, have them kind of connect at that point and feel something specific. It just felt way overblown, way over the top, and like they were trying to hammer it home for way too long. And at that point, it just gets tiresome. I got very disinterested with it. I was like, I get the point. Let's move on. It's just one of those things. Like, every scene feels like it overstays its welcome for the most part. Not every single one, but almost all of the scenes. It's bothersome to me. The story is pretty solid, but is really watered down because of how long the runtime is. Now, that's one of the biggest problems. I'm going to guess that the graphic novel is way better than this because I know that Cullen Bunn is a good comic book story person. That's a terrible way to say that, but I know he's good at coming up with stories, and he works primarily in comics. So I'm sure the graphic novel is good and a lot better than this film. I think the way it was adapted, it just didn't come together for me. Although, like I said, I know people who did like it. The payoff is really not worth the time you invest in it either. Like, by the time it got to the end of the film, I was like, I will be okay if there's like a really cool or interesting payoff. And then I'll be like, okay, you know, I felt it dragged from time to time. I had to stick with it, but at least I got this payoff. I don't really feel that way. I kind of felt like the payoff was, eh. I was like, I went through this much to get that. It's not worth it at all. It's like when you want a specific type of food, but you're weighing your options of like, if I want the specific type of food, I have to go drive there, and do I want to drive this certain distance just to get and eat that food right now? Or would I rather just eat something else at my house and then I don't have to spend all that time driving? Like, that's what this film felt to me. It was that restaurant that's a bit too far out. I am not willing to make that drive to get that story, you know? So anyway, that's just my feeling on it. Like I said, I would love to hear other opinions on this, so go ahead and put it in the comments. Anything you really want to talk about horror-wise, go ahead. Do me a favor, though, hit subscribe if you have not already. If you have, thank you. I appreciate that very much. It really does keep me motivated as I see new people subscribe to the channel. And it also keeps me motivated when people comment, because I answer pretty much every comment unless they're ignorant comments. You know what I mean? Like people just obviously trolling or something like that. Those I don't answer, or they get deleted. So just know that. But do subscribe. That's your way to thank me. It is quick, painless, and costs you $0. And it'd be awesome. I would really appreciate it. So anyway, thank you regardless for taking your time to watch this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.